Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite dark sorcerer. And tonight, or I should say this morning, because it's after about 11:08 a.m., I'd like to talk to you a little bit about history, specifically that of Moloch or Molech. Depending on the era in which this great prince was discussed or even mentioned, even worshipped, even. His name has a couple of spellings. MLK to Moloch with two O's, Moloch, to Molech with an ECH at the end. He is a Babylonian, Semitic, a Sumerian deity. Okay. And this deity was formed in the image of a calf. Okay. A calf, a cow. Okay. He has a very long history throughout demonolatry and angelology, more so in occultism. He's been mentioned a few times throughout history, especially in the last 1,000 years. When we get into the Red Book of Appen, we see how he is brought into a prayer alongside Astaroth and Beelzebub, but also to the prayer towards Samael, Lilith, Nebu. Okay. Um, when we get into his history, though, it's really rich because number one, the first time he was mentioned, the really publicized mentioned was in the Bible, the Old Testament. Okay, and in this image, he's associated with a calf, the Aaronite priests, where Moses's brother Aaron, the head priest, forged a calf, idolatry. Okay, the image of a cow, and cast lots. This is the Old Testament. And it was said that he was the prince of burnt souls. Okay, and this is why. We all know that their story is written by the victor. Okay, so when you get into these myths and these legends, before the Christians, he was known as the calf god, the goat, the prince of the valley of tears. Okay, his very image was of a big golden burner. Okay, one of those big gold, kind of a gold burner. Okay, to which corpses were tossed into a big furnace, basically. Now, this is where he got the reputation of as the Prince of Burned Souls, the collector of burned souls. Okay, but when Christians got a hold of him, he became associated with child sacrifice. And if you look where Christians have gone throughout history and the wild imaginations that they had, you look at, for an example, in ancient Greek, you have the cult of Artemis, or you have the cult of Isis, the mother of witchcraft, okay, an Egyptian, okay. These people that think that child sacrificing was, virgin sacrifices and all this stuff. But the truth is that Moloch's history, he is a prince, and he does come from the realm of the Valley of Tears. He's also associated as one of the most darkest princes in demonolatry. He's right up there with Volok, Balaam. Okay, Balaam is associated with the temptation and corruption of women. Okay, whereas and now he's associated as a king. Okay, from the Galatia. All right, so then you get into Volok. Volak, depending on the era and the spelling yet again, because we've seen how names have changed spellings over the centuries. Okay, and he's known as the corrupter of innocence. Okay, so in essence, he really is. Moloch is one of the most darkest princes out there because he's so cruel. He's like a hunter. Okay, but what he is known for is the devouring of the families, the loved ones. There have been throughout history cults that worship him. We've seen where beings, people, have gathered at the foot of Mount Hinnom and literally tossed corpses in. Now, why did they? Now, why did they do this? Today, Christians would refer to this as sacrificing, human sacrifice. What happens when you leave a corpse laying around? Have we not learned from the Crusades, the Dark Ages, the plagues, the Black Plague, the Spanish influenza? Think about it. When a corpse decays, it creates disease, it creates sickness. All right. So people would toss corpses into a furnace. In this case, it was most likely a big bonfire that was the foot of the cave, which is cool. But you just see how the stories change. I find it very fascinating how these deitas change over time. It's kind of like Astaroth going all the way back to Astarte, even going through what is known as today as a sex change from female to male. So when we get into Moloch's history or we get into any demonolatry, angelology even, you consider Belial was said to be third in command of the armies of heaven before Lucifer's fall. We know that Azazel used to be a Gorgorite, a watcher angel. So why would they be classified as demons? They're fallen angels, right? So history and mythology has taught us two main things. Number one, the story is always written by the victor. And two, to get to the truth, you really have to go back into those regions. In this case, you want to look into Sumerian, Babylonian, and Akkadian regions, but also Turkish. A lot of people didn't realize that his myth had actually gone all the way up that far, but it is true. Now, when we talk about demonolatry or angelology, there are also different sources. Okay? These are different symbols. And people always draw new symbols on or for deities every year, or even the last 1,000 years. I mean, look at the Grimoire system. When we get into these aspects, it's like here. Oh, come on. There we go. That thing did not want to stay up there. But anyways, we see how they were seen as good, much like the Elven in Norse mythology. Then we go down into Greek and we see the daemon. The daemon is good, much like the Devi. But yet some Devi, just like the Coco daemon, are considered evil. In Grimoire systems, they're seen as angelics. So why now have they been associated with demonology? People always try to make something more than what they are. You really need to go back into history to see where these beings come from, how they are seen, viewed. Now, you notice I started this out with biblical. He was seen as the image of a calf. Now, through art and history, we know that in 550 BC, or BE rather, the last Roman Empire rejuvenated the church and gave them full authority to limit idol worship. And yet, idol worship is now associated with the 10 Commandments. One might say that through Moloch, you can burn away the lies. You can burn away the misunderstandings, because he is the collector of burnt souls. He is the prince of the valley of tears. This is why demonolatry, the left-hand path, is not for the faint of heart. Because when you get into this, you're going to have to make hard choices. You're going to have to deal with history and mythology, and then deal with the public nuisance. For most people, don't want to learn. They don't want to evolve. I would recommend getting into the mythology of Moloch, Volok. Get into Balaam. Get into Belial, Belial. A lot of these beings in demonolatry, angelology even, are very, very powerful beings. They're very old, much like Pazuzu, the Harbinger, Beelzebub, the Lord of the Flies. You consider Pazuzu goes all the way back to ancient Mesopotamian. This is Arabic, Semitic, Vedic. Okay? And in some cases, even Turkish. Interesting, isn't it? Mesopotamian lore says that Mephistopheles was a great king, king of the underworld. But he's also the lord of blood pacts in grimoire systems. I find it interesting that now you have Lucifer Drafacal. Interesting. Scribe and pact maker. Are these two one and the same, or are they different? People are always trying to combine. But if you when you look at any system of sorcery, there are two things that you want to look at. Number one, what is the differences behind the stories, the myths? And number two, what are the commonalities? When you get into the commonalities and you're going from system to system, region to region, especially surrounding the Arab nations, the Mesopotamian, the Moab system, even the Israelite, or say, for an example, Akkadian, Sumerian, and Babylonian myths. you're going to see a lot of truth within the system, especially with Moloch. And I'm going to be getting into demonology and really showing you some truths behind these beings. And you're going to be seeing this over the next week or two, because I think that it will benefit a lot of people. I think it will enlighten you and educate you, maybe inspire you to do your own research. Just, I think a lot of people just need a place to start. From there, it's easy to delve into the mythology, the history, the religious perspectives, and how they can be brought into occultism, reli- ritualized invocations or evocations, depending on which one you're comfortable with doing. Maybe getting into ceremonial or individual rituals, blood sorcery, even necromancy, the dark arts, and see for yourself just how powerful they really are. I think also a lot of things is people just go by what they hear, what they know. And that is what prevents them from moving forward and actually learning truth and discarding the lies. So here, we're going to start on this. Moloch has two stories in his background. One, he was the devourer of burnt souls. And two, the Christian version, where he was used for child sacrificing. And most importantly, the sorrows of the weeping family members, which is why he became associated. Yeah, dry throat. Which is why he was associated with the Valley of Tears, because this boiler, this golden calf, was literally sitting in a valley when these corpses were tossed in. It was a funeral, basically. And they were offering the vessel to Moloch. So, with that said, keep an eye out for more videos. I'll be around.